Hello world, welcome back to the Pocket Gamer podcast with your hosts, me Brian Baglow, and the always wonderful, frequently jet-setting Archbishop of Advertising, the awesome Peggy and Salz. Hello Peggy, how are you?
I am well, Brian, and this time you're jet-setting, right? You are out and about. You can tell me in a moment. I'm on my way to RovioCon, so yes, I am jet-setting again, but you, where are you?
So I'm currently sitting in the ARC, which is the Advanced Research Centre at the University of Glasgow, in the historic 800-year-old or thereabouts campus in the city centre. I'm running a cross-party group today, which brings together MSPs, from the Scottish Parliament, to discuss the changes in strategy that I'm writing for Scotland's National Games Strategy. So this is a little added bonus. I'm suited, I'm booted, I'm running on caffeine, and I'm delighted to see you again.
I am delighted to see you. And I love the fact that you are leading the charge there, Brian. Absolutely. And it brings me actually to our show because we had so much reaction to the last time we looked at how bad ads are basically bad for business, right? We want to have a flourishing mobile gaming ecosystem. So we need to look at all the players, all the stakeholders. And that brings us to today's show because we have a survey to deep dive into. I'll start off with one of the stats for you, right? A staggering 84% of players uninstall games due to disruptive or poorly placed ads, as well as perhaps, I should say, deceptive creative. So yes, bad ads don't just damage your game's reputation, they hit your bottom line.
Oh yeah, I mean we saw the reaction from people. We've heard from so many people who you know this strikes home really hard, and so that's why today's episode's so important. We're going to dive into AppHarbr's latest report, which pulls back the curtain on what players of all kinds really think about in-game advertising and how it impacts their experience with the game. And I have to say, I found it jam-packed with really actionable practical insights that can help developers, publishers turn their ads from churn drivers into player retention tools.
Absolutely. And of course, lifting the lid on this critical topic, it's the only survey of its kind, not just another survey, it's a data-driven survey of players looking at the ad experiences players want, and of course, the ones that will drive them away.
Well, this is the thing, Peggy. We hear from almost everybody that we talk to on this show that it's all about the player experience. It's all about keeping them happy, keeping them on side, making sure they're looked after. And players who are annoyed by ads aren't just annoyed, they're leaving. And that's revenue just walking out the door.
Not just leaving the app, but also overall loyalty. There's some numbers, there's some data in there around this. So actually it comes down to fixing it. Fixing it is on the agenda for 2025. So maybe we just look at a couple of highlights, Brian. I mean, we've been both reading the report. It just came out very recently. What are some of the key takeaways for you?
For me, it was very well structured, and it really kind of highlighted what players want. So what is it that you need to give your gamers out there? And the report highlighted three key areas: relevance, timing, and the quality of the ads. So first of all, relevant. Players, completely clear, they don't mind ads if they feel targeted and aligned to their interests. But the moment an ad feels random or worse yet, spammy, it's game over.
I'll side with you. And to dovetail with that, timing, I thought timing was really important because makes sense, right? You're in games yourself. You hate being interrupted during gameplay moments, and ads that show up in the middle of that are frustrating. Again, this is not rocket science. We do know this, Brian, but now we have some data to back it up. And then there's a quality one. I was thinking of you because I remember during the show that we had with AppHarbr when we were going through this, bad ads, and you have, of course, your young son. So it's not just bad graphics, it's bad content.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing worse than I try very hard to be a pro digital parent. I don't believe all screen time is bad screen time, but when you've carefully curated and downloaded games that you want to play with your child, and then all of a sudden an ad comes screaming in that's completely inappropriate, can have offensive content, or just be flat out wrong, deceptive. It's not just bad for me, it's not just bad for my son, but it's bad all round.
There are ways to fix it. I mean, and they give you some tips as well. First you have to monitor your ad partners closely, even make a couple more calls or Slack chats or something to make certain that the ads that they're running are the ones that meet your standards. So it's a little bit of policing there. Controlling the timing, right? Use tools to ensure ads appear during where they should be, right? The natural pauses in the gameplay. And the other, lastly, just work on creative quality. Work with ad partners who understand your audience and deliver the ads that align with your game's tone, your game style. It is your brand. You need to protect it.
You're absolutely right, Peggy. It's you wouldn't leave a huge big gap, a space in the middle of your, precious game that you've poured time and money and resources and passion into, and let just anybody, plaster content in there of whatever kind. You wouldn't give some random stranger access to your social media channels. So why would you leave that kind of space and those kind of gaps in the game? And for me, the big takeaway was that if, as a developer, as a publisher, you're not managing your ads, you're missing a huge opportunity and absolutely risking your player base.
Absolutely with you 100% on this one, Brian. And of course, we have the show notes. We have details about the report. Not just the report, though. I took this out to the streets, as you would expect, at an event. This time I was in London for the last Gamesforum show. And I went up and found, publishers, studios, companies in the ecosystem, asked them what they thought about the problem of bad ads. And I've got some clips for you as well, Brian.
I knew we could count on you, Peggy. Let's take a look.
Admon is a concern. What are your clients saying, and why are they perhaps focusing on this now more than before?
So I would say that the tactics that both advertisers and networks are using for promoting different apps are being more aggressive than before. And I think that as publishers are feeling that, and players are complaining about certain techniques that networks and advertisers are using. And so I think that's what's bringing the focus of publishers on ad quality and how they can be in more control and what they can do to actually improve the quality. And if we're talking about the quality going down, what we can do to go back to the previous level.
Exactly, and that is the question, because there isn't a lot of transparency, there isn't a lot of control. You've heard it all day long at all the sessions, but there are things they can do and that they are probably doing with you. What are some first steps to taking back control of ad quality, because it's ultimately going to impact the bottom line?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I'd say that one of the first things you need to do is select the right networks that you're going to work with. Now, that's the very, very basic thing to do. Now, even if you're working with well-known, reputable companies in the industry, if we're being honest, they are also using some of the aggressive techniques out there. Beyond that, what you can do is block the most problematic categories, and this is certainly something that our publishers, our clients are doing. Think of political ads, think of religious ads, think of over-sexualized ads. This is all of the things that we can block just like by default and just not deal with it. And then, of course, it's not a bulletproof system in place, but I would say that 95% of the time or even more, it will remove those ads from your games for sure. Now, this is step one. Step two would be to think about maybe specific publishers that are quite aggressive with their ads, and in that sense, you might want to block those publishers altogether. And then beyond that, sometimes a particular publisher, a particular game are not problematic by definition, but some of their campaigns are more distasteful than the others, and then I would say that you have to, instead of being proactive, you have to be reactive, and then kind of react on user complaints in a way that once the user reports a creative that they feel offensive about, and once you review it and you say, okay, I agree, I don't want to see this kind of ad in my game, you can go ahead and block that specific, let's say, creative, and in that way try to push back to the networks and push back with the advertisers. One more thing that can be done is actually talking with ad networks and making sure that on the, let's say, user interface of the ad and the user experience altogether is a little bit better. If we talk about, for example, how much time does the pass before the ad is skippable, we can actually limit those default settings and kind of make them closer to what we want as publishers. So in that sense, we can make interstitial ads skippable after 5 seconds and maybe after 1 or 2 instead of 3 or 4 clicks. So talking with ad networks and ensuring that they are following your, let's say, templates for ads is something that can be done, again, to make the whole ads experience better.
It's very easy to say, we need to stop these ads, and it will have a positive impact, but then you can't really show the positive impact if you can't really single them out and say, see, the hypothesis is true. So how do you approach that, or how should they approach that?
One of the things that might be used is, for example, you can track how many tickets you were getting before you started dealing with ad quality or trying to improve it, how many complaints from users, how many one-star reviews, how many really bad comments on the stores. It's not maybe 100% scientific, but if you've got 10 tickets per day or 100 tickets per day, and then you go down to a few after some of those changes, then it's a good indication, it's a positive signal that you're doing something in the right direction. Maybe you can't measure the retention, but maybe these less tangible things can help you understand that you're doing something right.
And it's also helpful when you're trying to build up that track record, because a lot of brands are telling me, because I look at both brands, marketers, games, and they're saying, we want to be with the games who basically value this as much as we do. And so you want to build up that track record. You can't be like showing sort of dodgy ads and then all of a sudden go over to a big brand, Nike, hey, we're here, we've been good citizens and good stewards the whole time. That doesn't cut it.
Yeah. Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and I think that brands want brand-safe environments, and this is especially important for big publishers who are actually able to negotiate these types of deals with the brands. I think that you are in a position where you need to make sure that your game is brand safe, and that a big brand that has a reputation to live up to is not serving an ad right before or right after a really, really bad or over-sexualized fake ad or just plain disgusting. So I think that in that sense, we have to have some bare minimum rules in the industry, even though we're not regulated as much as some more traditional industries, right?
And last word, because everyone's more than a title. Božo, you are someone I hope to be connecting a lot more with, because now we're all about Admon, right? I mean, not that UA isn't sexy anymore, but Admon is new territory. What's next for you?
I see myself staying with ad monetization for the foreseeable future. A big thing for me at GameBiz was growing the team and not being just like a one-man show for the ad monetization services. I've been somewhat successful at that. I'm hoping that we can achieve even more, that we can work with even more publishers, help them grow their revenues, and keep everyone happy.
Onward and upward, Božo, I would say.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Ad quality. I'm hearing about it more and more, because if you're going to monetize through ads, part of the experience is the ad experience. Makes total sense. Where do you stand on that? Because there are some who say, well, it is about the last click, or it is about the monetization, but it's more than that. How do you see it?
There is definitely a moral question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes down to ad quality. I was actually thinking on the way over here a good analogy to do it, but because we're in London, I'm going to use the example of Harrods. So, we're at Harrods, and if you were looking through the window and you saw something that caused a negative response, if you saw something that was offensive in any way, your instinct would be to not go into Harrods, right? And they would effectively lose that business. It's the same thing to do with how certain sort of ad quality and certain types of ads are being shown in games today. A lot of people are running offensive ads, sexist ads, and they're trying to get a response from the user acquisition side of things to get people to download. But actually what's happening is, because they're showing low quality or offensive ads in the game, what you're doing is you're actually negatively impacting your storefront, right? Your game, your inventory. So it's extremely important that we as an industry actually start to observe this more, and we start to put procedures in place and technology in place that will stop people abusing this, just all for the case of trying to make a little bit more money. There is a moral question, and us who are in power, the technology providers, the OSs, need to start addressing this a bit more. So I'm very passionate about this one subject, Peggy.
It's very timely, but then of course, it goes back to the actual ecosystem itself. If it's set up for last click attribution, then we are pre-programmed to have these negative outcomes. What can the publisher do? What are you looking at as well as Kwalee?
Yeah, so from two fronts. One, from the user acquisition side, we're obviously ensuring that the quality of the ads that we're putting out, the message of the ad and all of that stuff is in line with what we believe is right for us as a publisher, as well as for the ecosystem and for people. Especially if kids are watching this, we want to make sure that they're looking at ads that are fun and engaging and nothing that's trying to inadvertently put a hook into them in a not a good way. From the monetization side of things, it's actually very tough because, we're obviously partnering with, a mediation platform. We have the network providers that are all linked in, and it's all done programmatic these days, right, through header bidding and such. So a lot of the inventory we're receiving within the games is just, we don't actually know what we're seeing, right? We don't know what the ads themselves are. We just know what the CPM we're getting. So it is a little bit of a black box in a lot of the time. We have a monetization team. My colleague Bruno is here today, who's representing from that team. And it's something that we like to, look into and spot check and whatever else. But the honest answer is there's not enough being done. And there should be much more pressure on the networks and even Apple and Google to start preventing bad ads going to market, fraudulent ads going to market, sexist ads going to market. There needs to be more stuff done.
I think when that message comes through, that we'll actually see some things begin to happen. But right now it's down to, yes, it is disturbing, it's upsetting. Some of them are very, frankly, gross. Disgusting. But it's down to the money. So I won't ask you your financials, John, I promise that. But have you heard or observed a correlation in the industry of basically saying, yes, there is a negative impact on the bottom line or on retention?
So there's calculation that needs to be done here, and I think a lot of people are not thinking of it in the sort of gravitas that it is. So some of these ads do have higher IPMs, install per 1,000 impressions, which means that they're converting more, which ultimately means that the CPM you're getting is higher and the fill rate you're getting at higher CPMs is better, which does have a positive impact on the LTV overall, at least from the users coming through ads. But what's not being factored in a lot of the time is the users who are the in-app purchase users, which are ultimately more qualitative, that they're worth more to us as a business. And showing the wrong type of ads to these users or even ad-based users can result in people churning, right? Because if people see something that's so offensive, and then what you're doing is you're making a little bit more money over here, but you're actually losing more money over here because the users are not coming back to your game because they don't agree with the ad strategy. And that could be ad frequency, how much is shown. It could be the type of ads shown. It could be the places they're shown. It could be a number of things, Peggy. But ultimately, people have to think a little bit more than just these ads that are getting a higher conversion, in a bad way are making us a little bit more. Actually, if you look at the big picture and you zoom out, you could be losing more money from just churn of users and the impact on the day 1 or day 10 or day 30 retention that you have.
When we talk about ads, there are many types of ads that are disturbing, not just the ones that are just, moral obligation as you've discussed, but just something as simple as unstoppable, unskippable ads. I heard a lot about that today, that if people are spending all their time looking for the X, one, they're not watching the ad, and 2, they're bound to leave the game.
Yeah, I had one, I had to click before the X popped up, and then once I've clicked, the attribution is obviously rigged for click, right? So the install would then be attributed from that. So in my opinion, it's falsifying the results, right? It's forcing me as a user to engage with it, to fire a click that will then be attributed to, like if I ever download this game, I wasn't going to this time, but if I'd have downloaded it in a week and the attribution window was still open and I've done it organically, that click would still register on my device, right? So there are a lot of underhand tactics that are being operated, and this stuff also is very bad for user experience. We get our customer support team contact us saying, oh, this person's complained about this person complained about that, and then obviously our head of monetization, Cecilia, actually looks into this stuff and understands, is it something on the network side, was it a buggy ad, was it the creative? But we are putting measures in place because it's important.
There's also spending time and resources playing whack-a-mole, trying to figure out what and why is there an issue. Is there an issue for support? No, it's not. It's an issue in the ad.
And as I said, we actually have our own monetization team doing these checks. Bruno, who's sitting exactly there, is one of the guys who does it. There's definitely more need for this stuff to be product-sized, either internally or externally. So, yeah, something that I know obviously AppHarbr are doing, and we're big supporters of the product and what they're trying to achieve.
Speaking of achieve, and maybe we'll swing over just to show Bruno for a moment, but that's just it. You have to build more teams, more talents. What does that do for someone such as yourself, John? Now you have to think about not just the admon team, but then there's like the ad monitor block team.
But ultimately, as a business, you need to understand that the operating expense and cost of on the P&L is something that you have to focus on, and just it doesn't make logical sense as a business owner or a P&L owner to just hire more and more people to do things like checking of ads. So there is, this is a question of efficiencies and product and understanding if this is something that we want to develop internally, which obviously costs time and resources and engineering and product and stuff like that, or this is something that you need to go to a third party with. My opinion is that it doesn't warrant the internal development. A third party would be much more sufficient and efficient for this particular sort of issue. And yeah, I believe that it's something that we should be looking at more.
So yeah, ad management, that is your job now. How are you doing that, and what are your approaches? Are you expecting to be not only investing perhaps more time in it, but also perhaps more tech?
It's something that concerns us for over 2 years already, and we actually try to use the tools from the mediation itself at first, trying to use the APIs, maybe download some important information about the creative that's displayed to the user, and we think Kwalee, moving the product to more quality product, etc., to deliver more. It's something that we have to focus more at the moment.
Something happens in the industry when we understand the impact. Something happens when we understand the numbers, not just the moral obligation. Can you give a range for what the impact of a bad ad on retention is or could be? Because we talk about it, but are you observing that as well?
Yes, when we of course have to A/B test it to see exactly what the impact will be, but if, for example, if the ads come all the way, every 10 seconds, we don't have a cooldown, for example, for that, the users will probably have an impact on IMPDAL, because we can see that the IMPDAL is getting lower and lower and lower. That's because the users that come in are not interacting anymore with the game itself. So this is something that guides us, there's something maybe wrong with the ad quality or the duration, etc. So that's what we keep track at the moment. And I cannot give you exactly the numbers, but it has a really good impact, like in the retention. That's why you have to keep an eye on that, especially at the moment. What we have is taking a look at this latency, duration, everything that we have, the tools that we have at the moment to take a look at. And when we fix that, when we go through the networks itself, hey, could you please block it? Of course, it depends on the user that's coming in as well. So it depends on the UA side, on the monetization side. Everything has an impact. But when we do so, we can see like maybe compared to the week before or the month before, we've seen an uplift. It's not only seasonality, but this thing is really important. So yeah.
That's enough, because we're in an age where incremental gains matter. Incremental gains are the secret to success. And speaking of success, I wish you, of course, the same at Kwalee. John, keep rocking it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bruno, great to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Peggy.
This is the opportunity to catch up with some of the great voices and speakers in the industry, and that is how I come to you, Piyush. You are everywhere. You're everywhere I am. We're everywhere together. I think that's what it is. It was meant to be. But it's great to see you again. We've had a little bit of a break from conferences. Here we are. We are back. How's it been, Piyush? How are you feeling?
It's been good. I really enjoy the conferences, because I think I get to meet a lot of new people, and I get to know the topics that people are invested in.
Topics on top of my mind I'm looking at a lot are the experience, because the experience matters. Yeah. This is not just UA, this is diversification. Yeah. You have to do something to keep people coming back. And ad quality is coming up a lot, because ad quality is one of the reasons they'll leave your app or game forever.
Ad quality, first of all, obviously is the content of the ad. Right? What kind of ad you're running? Is it some kind of ad that is not suitable for certain, age group and stuff like that? You want to control that. The other bit obviously is related to the rewarded video specifically and the crash that happens within the game, right? So that is more of a tech issue. Like, one is the content of the ad, the other is tech that the mediation platform typically enables, and because of which you see a lot of issues of a lot of crash rate actually going up, because a lot of the times the rewarded videos are not getting that kind of support, and the users, there are a lot of issues with the internet, this, that, and stuff like that. But obviously overall, that is the other big thing. And the third obviously is the control that you have on the ads as a publisher. And I think that's the one that everybody agrees is a bit of an issue, because right now in the world of header bidding and the world that we are moving in, you're actually getting more revenue, because obviously your ad quality or ad placement is actually getting relatively higher CPM compared to waterfall, because there's more competition, but at the same time you're not having a lot of control. Waterfall allowed you a bit of control, but header bidding essentially does not allow you a lot of control. So I believe that also is fundamentally sort of affecting the overall ad quality. And the fourth point I also want to bring up is ad quality in my head also essentially is a little bit related to the kind of tech that the user has, right, at the end of the day, because the Wi-Fi, the device type and stuff like that also affects. So you will not always have a very good experience, but at the same time I do believe these are contextual data points that you can use to actually run the kind of ads that you want to run, right? If I know somebody's on a lower Android 10 version as compared to Android 12 version, I know the kind of ads that I can run. I know the kind of apps I'll ask the user to install. So all of these are contextual data points that should be picked up, and it should be part of the ads that you are essentially running.
I'm just thinking of the number of people who are searching for the X so much and so fervently that they're not seeing the ad, they're not seeing the game, they're not seeing anything, and they're not enjoying it.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. I think that is one of the biggest issues that has come up in our advertising industry, to be honest, because at the end of the day, right now, even without the lack of somewhat user data that is available, I think it has become free for all, right? And that includes all the kind of ads that you're not comfortable with, that nobody would be comfortable with. But the point is that they are also out there trying to make money, and they're just putting it out there. It also includes the fake ads. Sort of giving a wrong perception to the user, which I personally believe is the absolutely wrong thing to do. You cannot, in my opinion, that's a personal take, you should not run ads that does not exist as a game feature within the game, right, or in any other context. So I do believe that it's a bigger issue. The way the innovation is happening in the ads right now, they are being forced to run bad content ads, because the human layer somewhat is not involved sometimes. Like it's not feasible to do it every single time, but you do need some sort of verification through the eyes of the humans as well, I believe. What I mean by human intervention is, what I mean by that is not check every single impression, it's not possible, not check every single ad. But at the same time, the ads that are being uploaded by the advertiser, there are ways to sort of double check that through, because in this day and age, you have everything that can be read, every single pixel of the ad that can be read, and you would know, right, what kind of content it is. And you can categorize it after that, and you can sort of run it with different kind of inventory, would have different sort of rating and different kind of ads being run. So I just believe having a monitoring of human eye with tech. Like, tech is essential, like that's what's going to run.
You know, another is really bad reviews and really just bad feeling between the player and the game. And that can be worse than retention loss, because they're going out and telling everyone about it. And I'm hearing a lot about that, you know, bad reviews. I'm not asking if you've actually seen them, but what have you perhaps observed that makes this an important topic for publishers, because it will cost them in the end?
It does cost them even right now. I think it creates the pressure on the publisher side or on the advertiser to control the whole narrative, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to be on top of the things that the feedback is being given to you, right? So I do believe it's a very good thing that the users are going out there and actually posting about it and actually commenting on the App Store rating and reducing it and stuff like that, because that gives the publisher, okay, no, we don't need to run these ads, okay, these are bad ads, okay, the crash rate is increasing. Else nobody would check. So it's a very good thing from a user perspective. When it comes from a publisher standpoint, as I said, like, there's content of the ads, there's contextual targeting, right? So there are 3 layers involved, and either of them could be bad. If it's something on the user side, then you can't do anything. If the user is in a low data space and you're running an ad and the ad doesn't load, then I don't think it's the fault of the advertiser or the publisher in this case, right? But the other 2, I do believe that can be controlled. Using the contextual targeting very well to serve the right ad, and obviously the quality of ad matters quite a lot, the content of the ad matters quite a lot, that you have to be stringent upon. Because at the end of the day, users suffer, nobody else. Like, even with those bad ads, publishers are making money, right? But the users suffer, and at the end of the day, you users are actually the ones playing the game. So you have to protect the integrity of the user by controlling the ad quality and being much more contextual, because I do believe there are a lot of contextual data points that can be used, and the segmentation has to be pretty good when it comes to advertising and users who are into IA versus IAP.
So today I'm with Zilberman. She is ad monetization manager, I would say head honcho at Playtika. Is that too much? You are in charge of all things admon, correct? Or?
It is, yeah.
And one of the things that we're hearing more and more about is ad quality, because a player quality experience also means ad quality. How do you see this at Playtika? Is ad management or ad quality part of, say, for example, your routine, your daily job?
So we do use ad quality tools, if it's on Max, if it's on Level Play, but this is something you need to do on a daily basis. You can't put bad ads, you can't put ads that players complain about. It's something that you need to maintain every day.
I agree, and when I think about it, you said yourself that you are the mother of 2, and that's something to think about. Maybe they're not playing games yet, I don't know, I didn't ask you, or too young to play games, but it will happen because they always play games. So that's the other question, it's the ad quality experience, it's also the ad quality content.
For sure. I mean, we see it, and we just talked about it earlier in the panel, that everything is changed. I mean, last year we said, okay, it must stop the way they treat the players, because eventually, it's CPI, CPM, whatever, all the world is about that. It's about revenue, but we need to think about more than revenue, about the players, about churn player, about retention. I mean, as an IAP company, we need to think about that. So we can't give any bad creative.
So what's your biggest nightmare? Maybe not at Playtika, but just speaking as an expert and personally.
I will say that my nightmare is that a player, or even someone from my company will play one of our games and see bad ads, bad creative, and then go back to me and said, but you block it. But there is some leaks. It's not 100% whatever. So this is my nightmare.
What do you think publishers can do, since they don't really have control of the ads?
So I think it should come from the publisher themselves. I know that Playtika really take care of the creative that's running on ourselves and on other games, even though it's not worth the CTRs, but it's something that's worth more than that. And I think they should be work together. Publishers, I know the admin team usually are separate from the marketing, but if we communicate well, and even between the publishers, and we post on LinkedIn, and we block an app, we block a creative, all of us, then it's powerful than just one publisher will do it.
You're working with publishers, which means you're hearing their worst nightmares. What are they, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been interesting to see how the ecosystem has evolved over the last 10 years. I think in the beginning it was a lot about diversification, but I think what we've seen now is more tooling offered by the mediation platforms, giving publishers more control in some areas and less control in other areas. But yeah, I'd say the things we help them with are, ad strategy. At Moloco specifically, had worked at a few different providers who did mediation or were ad network SDKs at AppLevin and Snap. But with Moloco, we're really focused on bringing that value that we've been bringing on the advertiser side, being a DSP for the last 10 years, now to publishers. As we've grown our business, we found that we're starting to generate a substantial portion of revenue on the advertising side. So we want to give more control and value to that ecosystem.
Publishers also want more control of what they're showing, and they can't do that yet, but what are some of the issues that they face? Because we sort of lump it all into control over ads, but there's like unskippable, right? But then there's also just straight out weird and disturbing, and scams and everything in between.
Our role, moving closer to the publisher, also puts us in a position of responsibility to be able to give them control over what shows up. As an SDK partner in control of the rendering, it's easy to have a dialogue with the publisher about like what type of settings they want, if it's skippable after X amount of time. There's a lot more that's customizable that we can now do with the SDK, so I think that's aligned with what publishers want. And then I think the more difficult problem is, what do you do about the inappropriate content? We've implemented processes so that if we see something inappropriate or a partner reports something inappropriate to us, we can pause the campaign. If they're a repeat offender, we can ban them from the platform for longer and longer time. So there's a variety of different things we're doing to combat that.
What about growing AdMon? What are some ways that they can do that in line with also taking responsibility for the ad content they show?
Yeah, and I think this was a theme that came up during the panel is really being able to integrate that strategy as early on in the life cycle of the product and the game, so that it's it really provides kind of a buttoned up economy. It can be very difficult and can feel to users like it's an afterthought if it's not done at early enough stage.
Michael, I have had some great interviews with some other people at Moloco, and you add to it, so we'll say hello to Safia, because just had Safia on Pocket Gamer. She rocks, and it was great to have you as well. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Until then, I'm Brian Baglow.
I'm Peggy Salz, and that's a wrap until next week.